And what is good, y'all? Welcome back to my page, The Director Z. I am Luis Zapatero, and let's just get right into it. Another Cursed Tornado video, yeah! And today we are going to talk about one I've been trying to talk about for a while, and the next one is probably going to be The Crow and Apocalypse Now. I'm thinking about doing The Serpent and the Rainbow and The Shining and other stuff, and Amityville Horror. Okay, but as of right now, let's go to the obvious right here. The Twilight Zone movie. Now, for those of you who don't know and who never even knew that this show had a movie, yes, the Twilight Zone did have a movie, and it's mostly connected to a disaster. And a lot of people are also still going, is John Landis a murderer? Does he deserve jail time? Was this a cursed film, or could this situation have been avoided? Let's dive in. Okay, so let's just start with some directors like Coppola and William Friedkin, or whatever his name is, and Stanley Kubrick. They're known to maybe go a little bit off the rails when it comes to the pursuit of art. And they're directors and, as some people say, visionaries. So is it allowed for them to be a little bit with the method and their madness or whatever? And are there people that's okay? Where, like, no matter what they say, it doesn't seem too extreme or too... Because you're making movies here. And that's not at all like 100% a safe profession, especially if you're like in a movie with action, or you're in a movie with a lot of stunts, or you're in a movie with a lot of fire. But in this particular case, this movie kind of came together as the brainchild of John Landis, who I don't really believe is... I feel like American Werewolf in London is mostly good because of the visual effects. It's not really good because of him. You know, Rick Baker and the werewolf. And then the Blues Brothers is Jim Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, as well as Animal House. So I don't really put John Landis as much as a pedestal. But he was a household name for directing at one time. He did Beverly Hills Cop 3. And Eddie Murphy vowed to never work with him again. So the tragedy here is that there are some people that are quick to blame the director, quick to blame a lot of people on the crew, but here's the thing. Steven Spielberg and John Landis put this together as an anthology film, and were trying to work their way to make it a Twilight Zone movie based on the show. And basically, what you know about this movie, and what you know about this movie, and like the other stories, is that what's his name? The guy from John Lithgow. The guy from Third Rock from the Sun does that whole gremlin on the plane. Like, there's a man out there on the wing of the plane, and like the William Shatner one. There's the whole retirement thing. And if you don't know the Twilight Zone, it's an anthology show where each episode is like a different take in a different dimension, where something's different. And Vic Morrow's character in this movie is named Bill Connor, and he's a bigot. And he's racist to literally anybody, you name it, that isn't white, basically. He's racist against them. And this whole idea in this anthology is to put a racist through the prejudice that they have, instilled and put onto other people. So Vic Morrow's character, Bill Connor, which I think this picture of him in the movie should do a little bit better of justice. Yeah, he's a Nazi in the movie. So, well, no, he's not a Nazi in the movie. He's just like a Klan. He's like a crazy, fucking, just hateful man. So in the movie, he has to get put through all of this racist stuff so that he can kind of learn his lesson, and that's kind of like what the Twilight Zone's about. So he becomes a Jew in World War II, and then he gets chased by Nazis, and he's thrown onto a train. And then he's traveling through time again through yet another racist experience, and is chased by Klansmen. And then another experience is that he goes to Vietnam, which is wherein lies where the story where the story kind of goes, and where the story, if you've heard of it, is going to occur. Okay. So basically, the idea was that the bigot that had went through all of this time travel stuff, Vic Morrow, or Bill Connor in the movie, was supposed to have a change of heart by the time the Vietnam scene came, and he saw 2 orphan children in the encampment, and he was going to go rescue them and have like this whole turning around. Now, before I go any further, if you don't know who this man is, this is John Landis, like I mentioned before. He's the director, American Werewolf in London. He's director of this movie, and a lot of people believe that it's primarily his fault what happened in this movie. Especially when I tell you about the helicopters in the explosion. But there was also someone else involved that is not someone to blame, but he still gets very emotional, and I feel like this story wouldn't be done justice unless we mention him. His name is Richard Sawyer, and he's the production designer on the movie. And I also need to mention the fact that there were 2 fatalities that also involved children. So if you've just heard of Vic Morrow's tragic death in this movie, there were also 2 children involved in this. So before you go any further, just know that. And that's a little bit of a warning, like, let's say, trigger warning, just in case. But, okay. So now that I took a beat real quick, Vic Morrow was supposed to run in the encampment, grab the 2 children, run across the lake water that was supposed to look like a village, like a Viet Cong village, and run off of the frame, out of camera, and look like a hero saving the children from the camp. John Landis would ask Rich Sawyer to create a small, condensed village that looked a lot like a Vietnam village so that the scene would have more authenticity. And of course, Richard Sawyer, as a production designer, wasn't really known yet, and he was actually, into the idea. So when it happened, he was excited when it was all put together and everything was kind of coming together for his career. He was kind of, making a name for himself. But another thing was that it was illegal to... I feel like I should mention this. It was illegal to film with children after 8 p.m. in certain areas in the U.S. and outside of the U.S. It's illegal to film with children after 8 p.m. And the scene that I'm going to talk about right now, they wanted to shoot very late at night in order for the authenticity to kind of be more that way. Now, that is not the fault of Rich Sawyer. Rich Sawyer's role kind of goes out as soon as he designs the production set, which is the village. John Landis is the one who's also kind of in charge of the final say of explosions and what happens with the helicopters and stuff. So just let's a little bit just keep that in mind as I continue this story. So, as I said, many people were also having legal concerns about the children. The casting director that had put the children into the roles for the movie had heard what the scene entailed. A series of explosions underneath a helicopter. Many people already had concerns about the children being there after hours. Now you're telling me there's going to be explosions and a fucking helicopter overhead? That's nuts. That's too incredibly dangerous for children to be involved. So this is why rehearsals are very crucial. Rehearsals are important no matter what you're doing. If it's theater, if it's film, no matter what, rehearsals are key. Practice is key, no matter what you do. So a rehearsal scene was happening before the actual scene happened with the explosions in the lake. Helicopter's supposed to come in, and Vic Morrow's character is supposed to run across the lake as the fucking helicopter's going in. And explosions are still happening in the background as he's carrying 2 children. So as they were doing rehearsal scenes, they were practicing with the explosions underhead of the helicopter flying over the lake. The helicopter was reportedly rocking very violently, and even people on the crew were going, wow, that helicopter's really rocking back and forth. The helicopter guys, even the pilots, the pilots came out after that rehearsal saying, wow, that was rough. John Landis is quoted as to saying, after that, and when the pilots came out, John Landis was quoted saying, you think so? You haven't seen nothing yet. So I would say when it comes to the percentage of fault, it's definitely a little bit more in the 40, maybe 50% range of John Landis. Because doing that during rehearsals with actual pilots overhead, nuts. Not even like quelling the fact that they came out of the helicopter saying, wow, that was rough. And him just going, you haven't seen anything yet. Instead of going, oh, we'll tone it down. Nuts. Psychopathic, right? Okay. Very dark. And let me just, right here, it's almost the 10-minute mark, and I also like to do this real quick in the middle or like somewhere at the end of the video. The reason I call this cursed or nay, is the word you see right here, is because this is all up to the viewer. I am giving you all of the evidence that has been presented to me, and it is up to you whether or not you believe That this was a result of some kind of curse or some kind of thing that shouldn't have been done or some kind of scene that shouldn't have been fucked with. Or if maybe John Landis is just cursed, or anyone on that set was cursed, or something else. Or maybe you just believe that this man's a murderer and he deserves jail time. Or maybe you believe that there was just an unfortunate accident, and those misfortunate things do happen, especially on movie sets. Whatever. Thing is, it happened. Deaths happen. This is a story that a lot of people are still unaware of, and a lot of people are still unaware that there is a Twilight Zone movie. This is not me saying to watch it. This is also me just telling you to be aware before you watch it that this has a whole fucking history about it. Let's go. Now let's continue again. So, this movie, like many others, have been through a series of unfortunate events. Many stuntmen and coordinators, actors remark how accidents happen on a lot of sets, on a lot of movies. There's no guarantee of anything for any stunts or any scenes. That's what rehearsal and practice is for. That's what blocking is for. Sometimes things tend to just happen. So, to continue, Richard Sawyer was asked to move a certain village hut during the scene more into the center. And Rich was going, okay, that's fine. This is where we get a little bit of a fork going into the road of the friendship between Richard Sawyer and John Landis. So Richard Sawyer is moving the hut into the center, and then all of a sudden, as they're moving and they're in the hut, he sees on the floor something that shouldn't be there. Richard is absolutely pissed. And he's looking at one of the crew members, and he goes, go get John. Get him right now. He's, like, his tone and, like, his excitement of building this production and being involved in this is gone now. Just out the window. John comes up like all fucking, oh, hey, well, what's up, Rich? Like, he hasn't done anything wrong. He points down. He's like, what is this? It's a detonation charge. It's one of those pre-planned explosions that they put in the movies that an explosion detonator guy is supposed to set off so it looks real. Now Richard has realized that John, even though there's been many rehearsals and practices and the shooting of the actual scene is happening the next day, John is trying to set up some kind of new, unplanned explosion that is unbeknownst to the rest of the crew. For those of you who don't know, blocking is essential because actors, crew members, the director, the writer, everyone on there is aware of what pieces are supposed to go off and what pieces are where and what actors are supposed to go where at the time of the scene and the shooting and the filming. John Landis was going to not tell Richard that there was a detonation thing under the hut that he was putting at the center of the scene. And it was just supposed to go off randomly. Vic Morrow didn't know. The children Vic Morrow was carrying didn't know. None of the other crew members knew. Richard was absolutely pissed. So when John was trying to go on a tirade going, oh, well, that's, Richard's like, that's not how it works. That's not at all how it works. Okay? This is my production design. This is my set. You tell me before this. You don't tell me after I move something that this is here, okay? I have to know this. Like, that's not something you're supposed to do. At all. Like, on any film set, you're not supposed to just move a prop or move a certain thing from the set and the setting and change everything and then just put it off under an explosion and tell no one about it. So that when they're walking by it or going, oh, I wonder what's, like, this isn't set to explode, right? Boom! Someone could die. And that leads me to my next fucking point. So, when the rehearsal scenes were happening, the parents of the children who were involved, which, by the way, the children were named Renee Shin Chen and Micah Din Lee, or Micah Din Lee. The parents were asking, after seeing all those explosions and seeing the rehearsals, they were saying, isn't this dangerous? Like, should our children be involved in this? But the crew was trying to essentially put all that nonsense to bed, and they basically said, oh no, it's like a Disneyland ride. Explosions under a fucking helicopter, and it's a Disneyland. Okay. Vic Morrow himself was even gonna go up to the director, John Landis, and say it was too physically demanding for a man at his age, at the time he was asked to do this role, to carry 2 orphan children across a lakefront in a pretend Vietnam set while explosions are going off and a helicopter flies overhead, mind you. He was going to tell John Landis that I can't do this. Like, you need like a young actor for this. You need someone in his 20s or something. I can't fucking do this. John Landis was adamant. He didn't care. He wanted the scene to happen. No matter what, he wanted the scene to happen. Didn't want to replace or recast Vic Morrow. He didn't want to ensure anyone's safety. Didn't want to take any more rehearsals. The day of shooting, explosions go off. According to Richard Sawyer and other people on the set, the explosions were much bigger the day they were shooting than anything. John Landis fulfilled his promise of, oh, you haven't seen anything yet, when the freaking helicopter pilots came off and said, wow, that was rough. So now the explosions are just boom, boom, boom. Apocalyptic level explosions. Vic Morrow is actually walking through the lake with the poor children. Then the explosions were too big. The helicopter falls. Complete silence. The propellers hit the exact side that Vic Morrow was carrying the children across the lake. The silence breaks when one person goes, "Where's Vic? Where's the kids?" All simply could have been avoided. Renee Shin Chan and Micah Din Lee were cut in half by an awful, avoidable, accidental helicopter wreckage that fell into the lake and claimed both of their lives as well as the late actor Vic Morrow. Could this have been avoided? Was there a way for this not to happen? Why? Why did it happen? Why? Why did the scene have to involve children? Why did Vic Morrow have to carry him across the lake under a helicopter? Why? Why couldn't the helicopter show up after he was after the lake? Why couldn't... Hindsight's 20/20. I know I'm just rambling now, but it's just... There's really no one to blame. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people tend to blame the director, and even the state labor union officials noticed that there were significant damages after the explosions and the helicopter crash and the 3 fatalities. And of course, the studios and the production offices and people that invested in the movie had to pay fines for allowing children to work after there. And of course, John Landis was found not guilty of involuntary manslaughter charges and was attended all 3 funerals and made a pretty weird speech at Vic Morrow's funeral, saying that film is immortal and that makes Vic immortal. I don't know. It's just very, very strange circumstances. Who's responsible for the deaths? Who knows? Is it John Landis? Is it Richard Sawyer? Was it anyone's fault? Was it the explosion detonators? Is it... They couldn't prosecute John Landis for this unforeseen accident. You know what I mean? Could anyone be prosecuted for something like this? Who knows? I don't think that's really possible. Because sometimes bad things just happen. Sometimes unfortunate things tend to misfire and happen on movie sets. They happen all the time. People get injured. Unfortunately, people die. And that's why I made this. So sometimes these story times are a little heart-wrenching and they can get a little hard. But some people don't know these stories, and they're very important. They're informative, you know? And it's also just so I can address this whole thing that's been going around, this whole cursed film ideology that may or may not even be a thing, you know? It's just an unfortunate accident, unfortunate event. Maybe. Who knows? Anyways, guys, thank you for joining me on another Cursed Films or Nay, or just Cursed or Nay Twilight Zone movie. I was Luis Zapatero. This has been Director Z, and this is me signing off, and thank you for joining me. And please like, subscribe, and comment on the video what you think. And, yeah. Later.